Welcome to Daddy's Podcast.
This is the Redefining Plastics Podcast. Justin Riney. Welcome to the Redefining Plastics Podcast. My name is Justin Riney. Excited today. I'm going to have a bit of a debate. I don't think we're going to call it a debate, though. We're going to have a discussion about composting and compostable products. And it's not really my level of expertise. I'm big on composting. I've said that multiple times. Home composting, out in the backyard, all my fruit, veggies, everything that after it's wasted goes into the compost heap. So I'm all for it. Packaging, on the other hand, I don't know much about. So this is going to be a learning experience for me. So I've got Lindsay Moran with NantBio on here with me, and excited to have a discussion, conversation, learn more about what you're doing. And thank you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin. Very happy to be here and have this
All right.
healthy conversation with you.
A healthy conversation. That's always great. Is if we could keep it civil and calm, I think we can all learn from each other, right? You and I talked about that when we first jumped on here. Being lifelong learners is the only way to succeed in life. So
Absolutely.
hopefully we learn a little from each other. And that's really what I'm looking to do. But so why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory, who you are, not just you as a business person either, just a little bit. You don't have to get into deep personal details, but I always like the audience to get to know you, the individual, rather than just you, the business person. And then maybe talk a little bit about NantBio after that and what you do there.
You got it. I'm born and raised in Southern California. I live in Sherman Oaks currently. I am a single mom. I have a daughter who's 7. Prior to me becoming a mom, I sold a lot of plastic.
All right.
A lot. My entire career has been plastic. Yeah. And I took a bit of a break with her. And when I looked at her, I just said, I'm doing it wrong. And I had a bit of what people will call a light bulb moment. And I said, I really need to make a shift for myself. I'm no longer really aligned with pushing plastics. And I would like to do something in the more sustainable space and sustainability. I'm fortunate to have worked with some of the biggest plastic suppliers and packaging company in the world, I think. And, I've done my part there. I know what the value is. I know how it helps, a lot of things in life be easier. It's definitely a choice. And I think for me, just having that little girl look back at me, and I thought, I'm going to make my choice to be a part of the solution. And in that, I have worked for a couple of sustainable companies in the past. And I'm very fortunate to have found a home here at NantBio Renewables. And, we're building our brand right now. So I'm really excited to get a little bit of word out there about what we're doing and, just have this conversation with you. I don't claim to be an expert either. I do have 20 years experience in packaging, but I'm not an expert in composting by any means, or even in sustainability. There's people with far greater education than me. I just know what I see and where I've come from, and just have a vision for where I would like to go for myself, my legacy, and my purpose here.
And that's fair. Honestly, that's fair. I understand a lot of what you're saying. I get it. From an empathetic standpoint, I completely understand. I think you and I are going to disagree on certain things, specifically on plastics, because this is my chosen profession, and I see all of the benefits, and we can talk about all that as we go along, but we're going to be constructive, right? We're just going to have a conversation. This isn't about gotchas. This isn't about me tearing you down and making you look bad. This is about us learning from each other. So I really would love to know, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I ask every single person that comes on this podcast, what do they think of when they hear the word plastic?
Oh, that's easy. Forever.
Okay.
Cancer and forever. That's what I think.
Okay. So why forever?
Well, because at the end of life, even when it degrades down into microplastics. It's a fact.
Okay.
That is a fact. It's found in our brains. It's found in our pets. It's found in many places in our bodies. And there are definitive studies that now show it does cause cancer. So for me, it never goes away, and certainly not in any of our lifetimes ever. Not even in 5 lifetimes. That has an impact.
I do not argue at all with your concerns about microplastics. I think the only thing I'm going to push back on, and I'm going to push back lightly on this, is the definitive links to cancer. If you show me some studies that definitively link it in humans, then we'll have a conversation, because anything that I've seen is the endocrine system disruptor, and that was done in rats at about 500, or I think it was 50,000 times the dose that a human would receive, which is insane, because the smaller creature with 50,000 times
Right.
more than a human dose, it's probably not an accurate study.
Mm.
But I had a conversation recently. I've talked about it a lot. I don't know a lot about microplastics. I will be the first one to say it. I think it needs more study, first
Mhm.
and foremost. And
They
I'm going to
are.
have conversations about that, and I'm not going to run from it. And
Right.
right now, I have not seen a single study that definitively links microplastics to any negative adverse impact to humans. Now, they've seen things in lab rats. They've seen things that it could mean something long term,
Mm.
but we need to do way more research on this. And the FDA said the same thing. The FDA still deems these products to be safe for human contact and in food contact and all of those. So that's the only part of that I'm going to push back on a little bit. But I do understand your concerns for microplastics, because it's everywhere. Everywhere I look, people are talking about microplastics. So I get that. I really do. And so I understand also wanting to make a bigger impact and do the right thing and make the world a better place. Full transparency, that's why I'm in the role that I'm in, because I want to make the world a better place, because I think we talked a little bit about this before we started, but 50% of my role is advocacy, which is kind of what I'm doing here. And then the other 50% is increasing recycling, making sure that we have systems in place to keep materials from getting into the environment.
So keeping materials from getting in the environment. Do you know roughly how much plastic in the world is recycled currently?
There are studies out there that'll say 9%. The problem with that is it uses 100% of production, and a lot of material goes into durables. So that's not apples for apples. And then if you look at paper's recycle rates, paper is always used the amount of material that was delivered to the recycling facility, and that is their denominator. So they've always had 90+% recycle rates. They finally had to change their tune, and they're under 60. They're right around 60% now, because they figured out that that was a false equivalent.
So do you know what 9% is of the billions of
The
tons
billions of pounds?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is plastic goes into cars, refrigerators,
that's effective?
airplanes.
But the question
What's that?
is then recycling effective?
It can be.
Is it
If we
efficient?
do it right, it can be efficient too. It's just not efficient now because the system isn't. The infrastructure is not there. We need EPR. I'm 100% on board with EPR as long as it's realistic and everybody plays by the same rules.
But you have to also think about it. That plastic that's created is going to end being in circulation at some point, right? There is an end of life to every product,
Are we
whether it's
talking
a
about like
Tesla
the
battery,
cars?
whatever it might be. There is an end of
Okay.
life to everything that we create, right? What happens when it stops being recycled? Eventually it will
Yeah.
not be
Yeah.
recycled. So then
Okay.
what?
Then it goes to landfill. And that's not ideal. There's no
And
product that's infinitely recyclable either. That's something else that we need to
right.
throw out there.
So what
This
are the
stuff with
end
aluminum,
let me just ask you this. What
yeah,
happens
go
at the
ahead.
end of life of compost?
It becomes feed for new life. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think compost is great. I do it. I do it right now. I'm not disagreeing that compost is a good thing. Let me be clear. And I'm not even disagreeing in theory that compostable packaging is a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. I've worked for several companies that used PLA and others like PHBs and things like that. My only issues with PLAs and PHBs, PHB, because it's difficult to make, it's expensive, and that it's just not scalable as far as I've seen. And I may be wrong on that now, but it hasn't scaled so far. PLAs, my concern is food insecurity globally, because you're taking actual food materials to make a biopolymer, which, in theory, it sounds fine, but then you start to look into population growth and food insecurity and the growth of that. I think the bigger issue long-term is going to be feeding people.
Well,
And
then wouldn't
so,
you run a compost to have better soil, since we have an issue
yeah,
with our soil,
yeah,
and that soil helps food grow
yes,
from here in the US? So
yeah,
it does seem to me to make sense that that is an important thing, because one of the aspects of Waveware, which is the NantBio Renewables brand, is that we harvest ocean calcium sand, meaning that
yeah. It's
um
calcium carbonate, right?
oh,
Is
yes, calcium
similar to calcium.
carbonate,
All right.
correct. It is. It's a lytic aragonite, technically. However, typically that's mined. It's not a
Yes.
renewable resource. It's
Yep.
mined, and then there's a big hole in the ground, and they usually put water in it or something like that. So what's different about us is that we're taking something that exists in the ocean. We're not hurting the ocean. We're not doing anything to the land. It's basically a desert ocean space that we harvest out of. So there's nothing, there's not like coral or anything like that there. We take like the top portion of that off, and it then, with the currents and things, it renews.
Yeah.
But
It
in
renews.
that process, we have a negative carbon footprint. Okay. And then we take that and we grind it down to the calcium carbonate that we use in our product. We're taking it there, and we are then putting it our products. You put our products through your composting process, whether it's industrial or home.
So you're
Um,
home compostable.
yes,
Are
we
you
have
certified
yeah,
home compostable, like BPA?
we have BPI and TUV certifications
Okay.
for our products.
All right.
Then you're putting something that wouldn't normally be there, that we didn't land mine and take from the earth, but we're giving it back to the earth. So the story of our beginning of life is really unique and really beneficial to, whether it's used in feed for chickens or
Yeah.
things like that. Whether you put it, in gardens, however it's used, it's there to enrich the soil and make for, a better food product for
Yeah.
us, for our benefit.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I
think,
saw your video. Just to be
yeah,
clear, I watched the video specifically with the straws. Looks
mhm,
like you guys just recently, I don't know when, I didn't check the date on the video. I don't know if I'm assuming that's relatively new,
it's pretty
where,
recent.
yeah.
Mhm.
So the one thing that I was confused on, and I would love for you to clear it up for me. So calcium carbonate's like a filler
Correct.
in polymers.
Yes.
What is the other part of this material? Is that like proprietary that you don't want to talk about, or can you talk about the actual biopolymer?
Components. I can't talk about that because you would need to sign an NDA.
Okay, and that's
Let's
fine. I'm just
talk
curious.
about the components of what we use. We do use some cellulose acetate in our products.
Okay,
We do use some PBS, and we do use PLA.
okay, all
Mhm.
right. So I've never seen PLA be approved for home composting.
No, it's industrial.
Okay,
Our cellulose
so
acetate product
you've
is home.
got different product lines that can go into different
Yes, correct.
end of life. Okay, all right,
Absolutely.
makes sense.
Well, the ultimate goal is, I think, really having home compostable
Yeah,
abilities. We're evolving in bioresin space. We've come a long way in a very short period of time. If you ask me, when I was at Primpack many years ago, now almost 20 years ago, they were the first company to have a sustainability officer. It was a big deal. No, nobody really had it. Now look at where we are in terms of compostable products, bioresins, and just the use and our ability to offer an alternative in
Yeah.
some aspects, not all by any means. We haven't really achieved that yet in all the spaces. Do we have a product that's compostable for post pasteurization? No. There are certain things that traditional resins can withstand certain heats and things like that, that when you have a compostable material, because we guarantee that it'll break down within 12 months, it's difficult to achieve, which
Yeah.
means we need to take a look at how we're consuming. And really, our product is meant for a conscious person and a conscious brand. We're not for everybody. Not everybody cares, which
Yeah.
is sad.
That's true.
Not everybody cares. Not everybody's conscious enough to say, I am willing to make a different choice in my life to eliminate something that's going to be here forever.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I've said this probably on every single one of my podcasts because I
Mhm.
rail against Americans. I get really, really angry with Americans. There's only 43% of Americans that have access to recycle participate in the system.
Yes.
And I think that's indicative of the kind of stuff that you're talking about too. Only certain people are going to make the sustainable choice. And in my opinion, every single person needs to make this their priority. They
Yes.
need to be focused on their impact and what's going on around them. And a lot of that's going to be reducing the amount that you fly. That's a
Yes.
huge deal. Reducing the amount of meat that you eat, as much as I hate that, probably a big deal.
Yeah.
And then just consumption in general. We need to reduce the amount of stuff that
Yeah.
we have. Like I was railing on fast fashion recently. There's a lot of stuff.
Don't get me
Eh,
started on
Yeah,
sheep.
I know. I know that'd be a completely different discussion for a different day. But
True.
I get so annoyed with people that are just saying things, and there's a lot of that goes on. There's a
Yeah.
lot of posturing of, hey, this isn't green, we need more green. But then when it comes down to actually paying for it,
Mhm.
nobody does it.
Yeah.
And until we get to that point, we get the critical mass in that point,
Mhm.
a lot of this stuff is going to be niche markets like you're talking about. You're going to have Whole Foods and other companies like that that will pay extra because this is going to be more expensive, right? There's no way, because there's a finite amount of this freely mining calcium carbonate in the ocean, and you don't want to take out more than you should, right? I think that's fair. So my question then becomes like, how big could this actually get? How much could you scale this? If you don't have a direct answer for that, that's fine. Out.
I think
I,
that's more of a question for Dr. Patrick, who owns Nant. I will say this, he's just purchased a company that was solely plastic, a very
okay.
well-known company that had issues financially and was the everybody talked about these kind of going to these kind of parties at this company, this brand, and he's now the person who owns it. And you would say, well, why would he buy a plastic company? Because his vision is that all of those products that were made in that brand are now going to be made with waveware.
Okay.
And so his vision is so much more than what the core 6 core products that we have now, which are the straws, the cutlery, the plates, and the bowls, and the trays. So it really transcends so many different aspects, whether it's for him, the medical industry, which a lot of plastics used there, whether it's, you know, toys for children that are made of plastic that could be made with alternative materials. We are a small company right now and we are growing. And Dr. Patrick, who's dedicated his life to cancer research and has actually won some really prestigious awards in the space and you know had breakthroughs with certain pharmaceuticals that can cure cancer and using the biology of the cancer in terms of under just questioning why people with cancer were losing weight. They're eating the same, but why are they losing weight? Well, the cancer cells themselves feed off the protein in the fat that you're eating. So he said, what if we put a cancer drug to fight the cancer into the
And
protein? So he's been an amazing man in terms of what he's been able to do. And he has 180 companies in the NantWorks umbrella right now, roughly. We are just one part of that umbrella.
so is he a medical doctor? Is
Yeah,
that
he's
so?
also
That's his background. So he's
Mhm.
actually a medical, like not just a researcher. He's actually
No,
like
no,
an
no. He's
MD.
not just a PhD or no,
Okay.
he's a practicing physician and
Okay.
a researcher, but I think he's still teaches at USC. He's very involved with UCLA. He's a pretty amazing guy.
All right. Well,
So,
I'm gonna have to look up because I
no,
lived in
I'd
LA
be
for
happy
almost 10
to.
years.
Yes, after we finish this podcast, I can send you some of the
That'd
research
be
that
great.
I've been a part of that
Yeah.
really is a part of the brand we're building because it's not just the weightwear brand. We are building a brand in conjunction with Dr. Patrick as he plans to use his platform and speak about microplastics and speak about the research he's done with it and its effects in cancer in humans, not rats, human.
All right.
Uh,
Well, hey, if you've
wh-
got it, send it
what
to me.
that
I'll
yeah,
read it.
what that means, just to touch on the fact that why we're called Nant, it's kind of an interesting name.
All right.
And it's from the Apache Nation, and it means to give back. And this is his way of giving back. He doesn't need to work another day in his life this weekend. God bless him in that way. He's amassed quite enough to do whatever he wants in the world. And this is his choice. This is how he's choosing to, spend his money, his time, his efforts, his energy. And I am just a part of that path forward.
Okay.
This
And
fall.
I appreciate your passion on this. I can tell this matters to you, and that's a big deal to me. Is I can't tell you the amount of times I've had conversations with people on the other side of whatever argument that I'm on.
Mhm.
That it's all pejorative. It's acting. It's not true, and it's
Yeah.
not sincere. And I can tell that's not the case with you. So I
I don't
appreciate
know
that.
how to be that way, to be honest.
I don't either. Whatever comes into my
Well,
head comes out of my mouth, and I'm not very good at with the filter
I
thing.
I made a promise quite some time ago that I would live my life as authentically as I can, and I think I've done a pretty good job of that so
Yeah.
far. There's times when I wish I didn't say the things that I
I think we're
personally.
all there. We're all there. I feel that way daily.
Yeah. But yes, I am a very passionate person. I don't know how to live life in any other way. And
All right.
and I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't passionate about it. I stopped selling plastic because I stopped being passionate about it.
It's
I
fair.
stopped really being excited about it and I started feeling bad. You know?
You're not alone there. I talk to people in the industry all the time that feel like, everybody that they talk to, everybody they meet, it's like you're working for big tobacco.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but it's not. It really isn't. But I understand. I completely get it just from a human standpoint. I completely
And this was
understand.
totally up to look, I respect so many people that still work at Cryovac and some of the other companies that I've worked
Hmm.
for in the past that I have very high regard for, to be honest with you. I think they do an exceptional job at what they do and how they put it out into the market. There's no shame there, especially to the people that are just trying to feed their families and make a living and, all of that.
Yeah.
It's so hard in this world to live nowadays. It feels like it
Yeah.
feels difficult. So I'm not here to cast any kind of judgment either which way. This is it.
Yeah.
I don't live my life that way either. You
Yeah.
do
And that's,
you. I'm just here to
and
encourage people and educate people that there are other choices that we can make. And
yeah.
that, those small choices that we make every day that might be initially a little annoying. Initially, when the reusable cups now that they were in the era of the Stanleys and the Yetis and all of that, I just thought that was so ridiculous. And now I have like 10 of them in my drawer in my kitchen.
You and every female in the United States of
Yeah.
America. That's
But I
not
got
just
my
you.
mom on it, my dad's on it.
Yeah.
I just kind of said, enough. We're not doing the water bottles anymore.
Yeah.
We're not doing it.
You only need what, one, maybe a second one for when you travel. I feel this like I can go through mine because I've said before on this, I fight at this house even to keep on the straight and narrow and being sustainable. So this isn't just you, this is everybody. But
It's
yeah, I
me.
wanted to talk a little bit about the potential for
Yeah.
compostables. And
I
so
think it's huge.
okay, and so my I have a couple concerns, and let's talk
Okay.
through those.
Yes.
So my number one and biggest concern for composting that's not home compostable, so all your PLAs and all that,
Mm-hmm.
is there's only what, 4 industrial recycling centers in the entire U.S. or industrial composting centers that
I
I'm
think,
aware of. Are there more than that? Like, what's happening there?
well, I think there's more than that. But
Okay.
I mean, it depends. So industrial composting centers that have bins that go out to the public, they just started a program here in Southern California. It's a
hmm
trial.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those, and
Yes.
I think there's one in Colorado that I'm aware of. There's one in the Northwest. I think it's
Mhm.
either in Oregon or Washington.
Yes.
I know that there's a couple in California,
Yes.
but outside of there's
There's one.
really not.
If you go
Well,
to the
okay, that's
CMA,
fine.
if you go to the CMA website, it has more information on that.
So
The women over there are fantastic, actually.
I've met them, and I agree with that.
Susan, yeah,
Yeah.
they're really great. So I just want to put a shout out to CMA right now to
Here
thank
we
them
go.
for the work that they do.
So
But
there
they,
are more than I thought there were, but
yes,
it's regional
it is
for the
regional.
most part. So
Absolutely.
it's blue states. It's probably the easiest, and Florida, blue states in Florida,
But can you
a
blame
little
them?
bit in Texas. Well, no, I'm just saying. So if you live in the Bible Belt, you're not going to be able to. Pretty
I
much
don't
what I'm
know.
trying to tell people that are listening to this.
True. I could say I'm not going to go there.
No, well, yeah. Let's try to keep
Well,
the
I think
politics and the religion out of the
you're right.
discussion.
But yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
I think that it is interesting, though, that you mentioned that, but it is regional, and it needs to be
Yeah.
regional because you're not going to be shipping compost
Yeah.
all over the place.
So
Theoretically, like to keep it in that way,
yeah.
if you can.
So the
And one
issue,
wants to say that we don't ship
yeah,
a bunch of other things all over the place in the U.S. Look, I'm in California. We're
yeah.
like technically like the 4th largest economy in the world. Just
And you have
here in
no
our,
fresh water. You have to get
we're
it from
talking
other
about that.
states. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we do that
Don't
we
rope
probably
me into a
shouldn't.
political conversation. I have a
Yeah.
political science degree, Justin.
Well, I have a history degree, so we could go round and
We
round on
can
that one. Not on this podcast. But
no
I think
privately.
the issue that I have is everywhere I go, because I live in the Bible Belt, to be
Mhm.
completely transparent, I see PLA stuff in the Carolinas all the time. What is happening to that? That's the part that I don't have an answer for because it's not going to a composting center. I know that for a
Well, it's
fact.
going to break down, and it's
Yeah.
not going to create microplastics. It's just not going to do it in a way that's going to allow it to be used in the soil like we would want it to.
Yeah. So it
So
will break down, but
absolutely.
plastics do actually degrade after 500 years too, and not necessarily, and I don't even think 500 years is the right thing. I'm not a scientist. Let me be clear on that. But the research I've seen, it's much less time than that, and it doesn't become microplastics. It actually does just degrade over time. But
That's not
we're never going to agree on that, so we can just move past that
absolutely.
discussion
Look,
altogether.
here's the thing. If it didn't degrade into microplastics, we wouldn't have a thing called microplastics, would we?
Well, microplastics, if they are as prevalent, and there's no way on God's green earth that we are eating a credit card of plastics a week. That's insane. You would be able to see it in your food. It would be like salt sprinkled on everything. It's insane. There's no chance that
Do
that
you
is
brush
real.
your teeth?
Yeah,
What do you brush your teeth with?
with toothpaste, obviously.
No,
You're
what?
talking about the polymers that are inside of that, or are you talking about the microplastics from the tube itself?
It
Is that what we're
leaches.
talking about?
I'm
It
talking
doesn't
about
leach like that, and that's the other problem. There's so much misinformation out there. These plastics they're
what?
tested by the FDA. There is
You.
there
So
is
wait, you think that
specific
everything that's tested by the FDA is safe?
that everything that's tested by the FDA is
Yeah.
safe
Every
for
product
food contact in food,
that
in
everything that we
packaging,
right, you think it's all safe.
until they find out that it's not. So PFAS was all over paper packaging for years in
That's
what do you
like,
call it, in butcher paper,
until
and
we
anytime you
figured
need
it
grease
out.
barrier. Yeah.
So
But what you're saying then is we should just preemptively ban things and just
I am
wait
not
until the
saying
science
that.
catches up?
No, don't
Okay.
put words into my mouth. I
All
never
right. And
that.
that's fair. I shouldn't put words into your
I
mouth.
never talked about a ban. Look, I don't believe I believe a couple things. You're in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should ban I don't believe that we should really be personally letting the government control what our choices are. Okay, whether
Agreed
it's our
there.
bodies, whether it's our weapons, whether it's anything.
Okay.
Okay? That choice as sovereign individuals, to me, matters.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. I'm just going to say that from my position and what I have been learning in this role really changed how I feel about what my choices are.
And I apologize because I do tend, because I get into these kind of discussions a lot.
Mhm.
I tend to assume that when people start talking microplastics and they say this, that, and the other, that they're immediately going to come back to me and say we should get rid of 100% of plastics, because that's typically the conversation. So I apologize
I
because
think
I jumped the gun
eventually,
there.
I hope that we can live in a world, to me, where unless it's absolutely necessary to have a traditional virgin or even PCR, resin plastic item, that if it can be made with an alternative that is compostable, whether it's industrial or home, because like I said, even if it's not put through the industrial process and let's say those products go into a landfill, some of them will, you can't control it all,
Yeah.
okay?
Humans are humans. They're going to
Right.
do what they do.
Exactly. It's still going to break down in a way that is healthier and better than a traditional plastic product will. Okay. And in a much shorter period of time where you might even see it in your lifetime, you're likely going to. So to me, that's even a little bit better. I'm about incremental change. Okay. Even in my life, I'm not one of those people that's like, okay, I got, 20 pounds to lose and then I'm going to starve myself to do it. I'm about titration because, like every other human being, I don't really want to suffer that much, right? I don't want to make it that hard where it's that miserable, but I want to get there because
You and I are the exact opposite. If I've got a goal, that's the
yeah.
only thing I give a damn about, and
Well,
that is all I'm
I'm
going to do.
not saying that,
Yeah.
but I also understand that long-term studies show, and
Yeah.
I know me, I'm
Yeah.
likely to adopt something into being a practice and a lifestyle change if I slowly, over time, make the change.
Well, it's 90 days to create any new habit at
Correct.
minimum anyway.
But I
So
want to do
yeah,
it
I agree.
and build a healthy foundation for myself. I don't want to be yo-yo dieting and then, back. It's the same thing how I kind of approach the change into sustainability. Does my daughter have toys that are made of plastic? Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Do I
She
try
have
to make
Legos.
better
Yeah.
choices? Oh my God, don't
Yeah.
get me started on the Legos.
Step on Legos. Yeah.
But do I try to make better choices for us in the areas that I can really control? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just for me. Is it annoying sometimes? Yeah. Do I miss, the days of having like a good straw at Disneyland, not the paper things.
Yeah, the paper things
God, do I
suck.
do? They're on my list. I'm like,
Yeah, I don't use straws. I usually just take the lids off of those things and just
that's a
drink out of it.
man
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I know. Well, I can get away with that.
Yes, but you don't wear lipstick.
Yeah. Not recently anyway.
So I think that for me, a I'm not a black and white thinker. I
Okay.
know that there's a lot of room for gray area. I accept that. I'm not obtuse to the notion that there are certain things that we've come to rely on, and you're not going to take those away overnight with some ban and not expect people to be up in arms. You kind of have
Yeah.
to slowly over time make these changes that will be better in the long run, and then people slowly get, you know, mm, used to them and accept them. I think we should consider when it comes to food, because that's where I've spent my specialty in packaging, rethinking how we shop. Just so much of the way that we consume in America is so different than other countries. And in Europe, they're farther ahead of us, even in recycling. If you take
Yeah.
Germany, for example, um, they're light years ahead of us. And I think that a lot of that is misinformation, like you've talked about, lack of education. We don't educate our people. In those countries, they
Yeah.
have commercials all the time about how to recycle, what it looks like. If you go to Toronto, Canada, and you go to a mall, they have, an area where the trash is, and they have actual people there sorting the trash there to make sure that it goes into the correct spaces. So there are things that I have seen in my life that I say, why don't we do that? That would be
Yeah.
so much better, things like that. So I think it takes a collective effort to do anything on a large scale. I wonder sometimes if the US is capable of that, especially with the divisive
Yeah.
nation that we have. It seems hard. So I'm not here to make anything more divisive than it needs to be. I'm here to say, what's the right balance that we can make small changes, kind of the way your family has been,
Hmm.
and then also then, compound that over time so that it makes a bigger impact and help get the education out there. It's not like one's bad and this one's good. No, none of that. I don't subscribe to that at all. I think there's a place for everybody where is a harmonious balance to be had.
Yeah.
Let's just find it, because right now the scales are just too far to one side, I think, and we could afford to push things, a few more things, I think, over into a more sustainable space.
First and foremost, balance, that's the operative word. I think
Mhm,
that's something that I try to live by. I use paper products, plastics products. I
mhm.
use compostable products.
Mhm.
I compost here. I
Yay.
I I'm a huge believer in that. I'm also a huge believer, like you said, in personal choice. So
Yes.
if people want to buy compostable packaging and they have access
Yep.
to a composting facility, if it's PLA, or
Mhm,
if it's home compostable and they're
mhm,
willing to pay the extra money for it, by all means, that's great. I have
mhm.
no issue with any of that.
No.
But the main problem that I have, just from a plastics perspective,
Mhm.
is a lot of these PLA packages are ending up in the recycle stream because people are so confused. And to your point earlier, we haven't educated people on what to do with this stuff. And I've talked to several people that are, I would say, they are more socially conscious than most.
Okay.
And I've asked them, what do they do with their compostables?
Mhm.
And they say that they don't have any clue what to do with it or where to take it. And I think we need to solve that. We also
Mhm.
need to solve the education about recycling, like you said.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff that we
Mm.
need to do as Americans, and we have to start taking more responsibility for it.
Yeah.
And I am 100% on board. I think where you and I are going to disagree,
Mhm,
and respectfully disagree,
mhm,
mind you,
mhm.
is when you say that you want to move things to compostability because it's more sustainable.
Yeah.
And yes, it is a sustainable option because it will become like plant food
Correct.
eventually, if it's made the right way.
Yes.
But, and the negative carbon footprint thing, that always rubs me the wrong way too. I know how you do that, but that's not typically the type of process that I would describe to, but that's perfectly fine. It's acceptable. So I can't say anything about it. But
Just at the beginning of life. I'm not talking about whole
you're
as
saying it's carbon negative. So instead,
Right.
so for us, that would be like if you were to take a PCR product and it would
Correct.
be burden free. So it would be a
Correct.
0 for
Right.
us.
So
Okay.
right. So that's all I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Because
And
I
that's
do
fair.
think a lot of people do misspeak about that.
I think a lot of people take advantage of this kind of stuff for marketing purposes. And
I agree.
plastics, people do it too. So don't get me wrong.
I think
think-
that the carbon footprint of all of us matters. And I think
Yes.
that what it goes back to when we talked just before is personally, I have looked at the amount of waste or trash or my carbon footprint, however you want to talk about it,
Yeah.
and said, I can make some improvements. I think we would all agree that we all can. We all have
Yes.
room to have some improvement. And I think what I'm hoping to do is encourage people to go from thinking I could make some improvements to actually implementing, making the improvements and raising the awareness of how they might be able to do that and getting more of the word out there about what you can do and how you can do your part. And truthfully, I don't think there is a good answer, a perfect answer for any of this,
Yeah.
right? We are literally solving something that is we're not going to have a solution maybe that everybody's happy with ever for anything, right? I think that it's just, like, for example, you were talking about the money and the cost and things like that. One of the examples I can think about is there's a market out here in California that caters to a very high end clientele. They're kind of known for their famous people's branded smoothies and things like that.
I know what
They're-
you're talking.
Yeah. They're a very
Yeah.
conscious company in that way. Will they choose to entertain a conversation with me about some of the choices that they have made in some of the products? Because let's just talk about the elephant in the room for a minute. A lot of companies have a lot of plastics going on, and then they'll have like a compostable straw or a compostable tray. That's great. I love that. And if it's a company like the one we're talking about, that a store that is really committed, right? Or seemingly really committed.
It's always the question.
Right. Yeah, they're buying, let's just say, a straw from a company who is the largest manufacturer of polystyrene. That doesn't really sit well with me, to be
It
honest.
sits well with me because I work for a company that sells polystyrene. So
But you're not the CEO of that company who touts themselves to be conscious and, elite.
You've obviously never met a CEO of a grocery chain.
Yes, I have.
I would say all of them are saying this
I'm not
stuff
talking
because
about
of
all of them.
marketing.
I'm talking about one in particular.
I know, but I'm saying every single one of them says
Underneath-
that they're green because of consumer pressure. That's the only reason why they do any of it.
Well,
Not
that's
because they care or want to.
And that's part of the problem, if you ask me.
I agree.
I've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world doing what I do. Truthfully, I'm not just saying that. I really have.
No, for the companies that you work for, I know you have because I know what companies they sell to.
Correct. And you become almost a secondary employee in those companies. You are invited to their innovation sessions. You're invited to be a part of when they're innovating something in partnership with you that is very secret. When we innovated the Coke Freestyle machine, nobody knew about it. It was project, I can't even say it.
Yeah.
So it had a name, so nobody knew what we were working on. All of that is very protected. Their brand is their identity. It matters. So the fact that a lot of this was born because of the push of their clientele and their consumers speaks volumes. There is enough energy around sustainability, whether you like it or not. There is.
Are you sure about that? Do you
Yes.
truly feel like let's say the majority of people in the US care about sustainability?
It depends where you live.
No, I
I
mean, just
think
like
it can be a
macro
short.
level, you look at the big map and you look at it and you take all the state lines off and you say, this is the US. Do you think the majority of people actually care about their footprint?
I don't think enough people do.
I would agree with that.
I think we are at a tipping point here in our planet, whether people want to admit it or not. We're at a tipping point. We have one Earth. Last time I checked, we're not set up on Mars yet with Elon.
Yeah.
So
Well, let Elon run around for another couple of years, maybe. Who knows?
this is what we have.
Yeah.
At some point, collectively, we're going to have to look at, we can't keep kicking the can, pun intended, down the line. We
Yeah.
can't. If you're a father, you have kids, then you're making it their problem and then their
Yeah.
kid's problem. I just think, for me personally, I would like to see more of an effort towards being more conscious in general, of how our choices individually have a ripple effect outward and affect so much, because truly we are all just energy. And if you look at it like that from a scientific perspective, it cannot be created or destroyed. It can't be destroyed. It can't be destroyed. So
I didn't realize we're getting into thermodynamics today.
say it again. It can't be destroyed. So everything that we do is going to exist.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not. It's just a matter of how we choose to create it. And what I'm asking is for people to make choices to choose products that were created so that they go on to be food versus, who knows?
I would love for young people in this country to actually do what they say they're doing. Is Gen Z, just as an example, recycles at the lowest rate of any generation. They are not as active in doing these green, sustainable projects as they say they are. A lot of them say they are on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you look at the data, none of it's backed up. There's no actual activity that's backing that up. So I really would love for Gen Z to get inspired and actually make a difference. And
I would love
reduce
anybody
waste.
to get inspired.
Yeah.
That is what we are designed and created for, is creation. None of us are designed to strictly consume.
Yeah.
And if
we're not consumers. We've been made into consumers. I agree with that.
Yes. So being creative is a huge part of what we're here for. And I didn't say creators, creative. So I would like for us to creatively and collectively find a better path forward for, all of us, really. I know that
if we don't work together,
Correct.
both sides of the argument. So, because I think there's a place, to your point, there's a place for both of our products.
Yes.
And for both of our separate industries to be successful. And there should be. There
Yes.
should be choice for people.
Yes.
If people want to buy compostable packaging and they are educated on how to take care of it,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's home compostable, excellent,
Mm-hmm.
and they have their own composting in the backyard, great. I just need them to stop putting it in recycle streams. That would be great. I would
Well,
love
let's
that.
just have them stop putting trash into the recycling stream.
I also would love that. That's a different
I
argument
mean, at the
altogether.
end of the day,
Yeah, batteries. Please stop putting batteries into the recycle stream, people. It
I
causes
remember,
fires.
I remember doing a project with a very large soda brand
Mhm.
for labels that would float.
Just for the sink float, people don't even really use sink float processes to separate anymore. That doesn't make a lot of
We
sense.
did when we did this. And this goes to show
Okay.
you this was about
All
15
right.
years ago.
All right.
So my point is, you just made my point. Thank you. Look how far we've come.
Yeah.
In 15 years. That is not a long time.
In an industry that doesn't do a lot of innovating. We need it to innovate more, but yeah.
I disagree with that.
No, I mean the recycling industry is what I'm talking about.
Well, you
Yeah.
know, okay.
Packaging industry, they're pretty good with
I think yes.
innovation.
Yeah.
Because I came out of a packaging company, or two packaging companies
Okay.
before this.
Yes,
so
there's a lot of innovation that
yeah.
goes on. At least in my world, there has been. I've been fortunate for that. Look at TerraCycle, taking cigarette butts and making park benches, and so many things. There are companies that I've seen that have been innovative.
There's a company called Foam Cycle that does a bunch of densification locations, and they make hub and spoke recycling for EPS foam. So all the what people call styrofoam that gets shipped to your home, you can drop it off, and then they can densify it and make it back into more transport packaging. And it's 98% air.
Why do you like polystyrene?
Honestly, because it's lighter than most everything else. It has a better carbon footprint when you compare it to traditional packaging materials. If you were to take polystyrene and move it to another polymer, for example, you're going to have to make it a thicker package, so it's going to be heavier. So there are a lot of reasons why polystyrene is great. And honestly, I just love the company that I work for and the people that I work with. So polystyrene to me is a soft spot because it's under a ton of attack. And I think wrongfully so, because we can recycle it. It's being recycled, and we need to recycle more of it. And I honestly thought when we talked today, you were going to say things like, well, we need to ban plastic. So I'm very thankful that that's not the direction this conversation went.
I happen to have a dad in the meat industry.
Yeah.
Unless they want to be disowned. I'm just kidding. No, I've helped find many solutions, and I hope to continue finding many solutions for the industry that allow them to operate the way that they prefer to, which I'm very familiar with, having grown up in it. And, in that way, finding solutions that allow them to do business the way that they want to do business, but also giving their customers a more conscious option, because it's so much volume. And really, it can't be reused. So
I use it, so I know it can.
You can wash it.
Yeah. And advanced recycling, so chemical recycling, you can actually take it and then you don't even need to wash it.
Okay. But in terms of the industry, they can't reuse their trays.
No, it's not reusable. Reuse is different.
Correct.
Yeah, we're not talking reusable.
So I think.
Well, compostable, are we talking that as reusable as well? Are your products?
No.
All right.
No.
So yeah, apples to apples, and that's fine.
I don't think that the end of life with polystyrene has a positive. Can you give me a positive for the end of life polystyrene? Okay.
What do you mean by end of life? Because that's a bit of a misnomer, because you even just said there's nothing created nor destroyed. So technically,
the end of life of
that
product, you can transmute it into something else.
Exactly.
But what's a positive end of life story for polystyrene?
So EPS transport packaging in the US. And
Mhm.
so think anytime you get a washing machine shipped around the country, it does a lot of things great. It's shock resistance and it's able to protect that washing machine. If you were to
Mhm.
switch to cardboard or something else like that, you're gonna have a lot more spoilage
Mhm.
of large equipment. You want to talk about an ecological disaster? You break a washing machine and then not be able to recycle all of it. And then what kind of a waste are we talking there?
Well, look at Tesla's batteries.
Well, yeah, Tesla's batteries. I love
Yeah.
Tesla, but yeah, the batteries are a problem. You can't
Yeah.
really recycle them. What are you going to do with them? They go to Asia.
See
But
Mars?
yeah, maybe that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to
Or big.
he's finding an outlet for all of his Tesla batteries. The EPS transport packaging is collected at distribution centers. So once that washing machine gets into the
How
distribution center,
yeah.
go ahead,
How
and
many of
then
those
they
centers are
densify it. There's probably thousands because you got all the different companies and all the different. I don't know. I don't know how many distribution centers there are, but there's a lot because you got Best Buys, Walmarts, Costco,
and
yeah,
so they do
Target.
I mean, I don't know, you're educating me. Do they recapture EPS?
Yeah. Yeah. And they densify it on site. So they've got these big pieces of equipment that take that material and go
Mhm.
50 to 1. So
Mhm.
they mash it together to push out all of the trapped air within the EPS to make them into ingots. So they're like 3-foot by 2-foot ingots,
Okay.
then can get stacked up on a pallet and then shipped economically. Because the
But
problem
that's
with EPS
okay.
is you go from like a quarter truckload. If you
Mhm.
take just traditional EPS waste, you
Mhm.
can't fill it up all the way because you can't get a full truckload of weight. You can get a full truckload of volume, but when you densify it, you can make a 40,000+ pound truckload, and then it makes it economical to ship across country.
And then
And
what
then
do
all
they
the
do?
EPS companies take them back and then remake that into more transport packaging.
So
31% recycle rate, which is higher than water bottles in the US.
I was just gonna ask you what the percentage is. So is it safe to say that the majority of EPS is PCR?
Mm-mm. Can't say that. So there's a lot of virgin that still goes into it. We need to recycle more. And that's why we're putting this together. We want to recycle more and more and more.
What
And we
about
want to recycle more than just transport packaging. We want to recycle red party cups. So next time you're playing beer pong, you
mhm.
can have recycled content. And there's recycled content that goes into those
Their
things.
legislation only allows for a certain percentage. So how do you navigate
Depends.
that?
It depends on the structure of the product. So if you have a multi-layer structure, you can bury post-consumer resin on the inside and then cap it with virgin on the outside. And that way you don't have anything that'll migrate.
Oh, I'm
So it's
aware.
safe for use.
My previous employers who extruded
Yeah,
multi-layer films definitely did that.
a lot
But
of people do
a
that.
lot of regrind. It was mostly regrind. It wasn't.
Post-industrial is more likely in that
Yes,
case,
it was
but you
regrind.
can do post-consumer if you can go through and do the migration testing to show that it will not, to use your word earlier, leach into your products. Because you have to
So
prove that it won't leach.
right, because with food grade products in particular, the FDA is very clear about their regulations on what kind of materials are allowed to be used. Let's say on
Exactly.
thermoform tubs
Yep.
or
You
containers.
can't put thousands of additives in here. I'm sorry, Judith Inc. with Beyond Plastics. That is horse manure. I want to use a different word, but there are not thousands of additives in there. It's very strictly controlled and it's tested, and you don't want to just dump stuff into food packaging, as you're aware. The first time you do that, you're screwed. You're getting sued. It's a big recall. And
Yeah,
if you ever have a brand recall packaging, you've lost your margin for multiple years, more than likely.
correct.
So yeah, nobody's trying to pull a fast one on the American people. We want to recycle more. We want plastics to be more circular. That's what we want.
Why
But
do
at the
you
same
want?
time, I'm 100% on board with composting. Let's do that too. We can't, it doesn't have to be binary. It can
Mhm.
be either or. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I have no issue with that.
If my side of the street got bigger, how would you feel about that?
fine. It's free market capitalism. That's the way it works.
Is there, do you think, an agenda behind pushing plastic that
I
goes
think there's
beyond?
agenda behind not pushing plastics and pushing against plastics. Like Michael Bloomberg, I just mentioned Beyond Plastics. He's made it very clear that his goal is to get rid of plastics. And he's putting millions of dollars into this. And
Is
there's a
that
lot of people that are convinced that plastics are going to kill everyone and that the world is going to be irreparable. And I haven't seen any evidence of that. And if I do, I will completely change my tune and I will talk about it. That's the joy of having your own podcast that nobody is paying for. You can say what you want.
so? What about like the forever chemicals? How do
Forever
you-
chemicals are mostly in paper. PFAS isn't really in plastics.
But we didn't
There's
know.
no PFAS in any of the products we make.
But we didn't know about those, right?
No.
So
Well, you didn't know that. People didn't realize it was a problem. Like Teflon. Teflon's been in cooking forever. Like you probably have a Teflon pan in your house somewhere. You got rid of them? Okay.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Most people still have nonstick pans. I don't typically use
Stainless
nonstick pans, but
stainless steel.
all right.
All the way.
So I think we talked a little bit about butcher paper, and any
Yeah.
paper that needs grease resistance is it probably has traditionally been made with PFAS, and now they're using a less effective solution, not using
Which is a good
PFAS.
thing.
So,
Butcher paper
yeah.
is a very short-term use item.
I agree with that.
So
And here's another interesting fact for you. If it's not cardboard in the US, less than 8% of that paper is recycled. And it goes to landfill. And when it goes to a landfill, it breaks down into methane. And methane is the largest contributor of greenhouse gases in any landfill. And it accounts for 14% of all methane emissions in the US every year.
yes, and
A good reason why we should be doing more composting, because food waste is a big part of that, and your packaging could be a solution for that too.
I hope so.
I'm on board with this. I'm just not on board with people saying that it has to be either or, and we have to get rid of plastics as
I
packaging.
think that kind of thinking is flawed in general. It's very black and white, and I think that there, like I said, there is such a gray area in so many aspects of this world and how we live. And I try really hard to stay in that gray area. I find that life gets really difficult when you push yourself to one extreme or the other. It becomes very polarized.
Yeah.
And I don't really care to live a bipolar existence.
We need to all get along. We need to work together. We need to support each other. And that's the only way we're going to make any real difference in this world. So we've talked now for an hour and 10 minutes.
Yes.
I guarantee you, I can't keep people's interest on plastics or composting or anything for more than an hour. So what I would love to do, though,
ADD because of all the microplastic. I'm just kidding.
so I do want to give you the opportunity to speak about anything that we haven't covered. Is there something about the company that you really wanted to highlight that maybe we haven't touched on today?
I think just that we are growing. You're going to see a lot of newness come out of NantBio Renewables. You're going to see a lot more innovation. We have some fantastic people on our team that are published in sustainability, that are PhDs. So we aren't just that company that says things. We are a company that hires people that do things and do it right and do it well. I think just look out for Waveware. We are going to be a company that you'll hear a little bit about now, and our goal in the next 5 years is to be the preeminent brand and choice for, bio resin-based material. So, we don't know what that looks like exactly now. The vision is becoming more and more clear every day, but it's exciting. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can all, find our footing in this world together. Plastics, composting, recycle.
New sustainable
We
economy.
need
That's
it
what we
all right
need.
now. Let's just
Yeah.
say we need it all right now. And
Yeah. All
anything
of the
we can
above.
do to do
Yeah.
better in any way, to me, is a step forward.
All right. Well, I wish you a ton of success, first and
Thank
foremost,
you.
because I enjoyed the hell out of this. Like
Well,
I like these kind
thank
of
you.
conversations where we can kind
Thanks,
of
you.
challenge each other and just
Mhm.
talk and
Yeah.
not feel like because I do this in LinkedIn all the time, but
Mhm.
you just lose that, and then
Yes.
it becomes just manufactured, and it's not nearly as fun as just talking.
Correct.
And so I really appreciated you
Same.
having the courage to jump on here and do this. And I would say that I want to do a couple more, we'll call them roundtable discussions,
Yes.
where I'm going to have different people, and I'm hoping to get some consumers that I don't know this time, so not my friends, and have them come on and just ask questions and have a real discussion with people about what we can do to make this world a better place and to make packaging more circular in general. And
Absolutely.
so I think you would have some insight into that discussion that I would
Thank
appreciate.
you. I would love to be a part of that. I would really love the opportunity to be a part of a roundtable like that. Sounds like a good time.
All right. Well, I'm going to take you up on that. So you
Okay.
can't take that back now. This has been the Redefining Plastics podcast. My name's Justin Riney. Thanks again to Lindsay Moran for jumping on with NantBio. Really, really enjoyed this one. I think you all will too. And everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
If you want to learn more about the plastics industry, recycling, check out these other videos. Please like and subscribe.